You call it contentment. You speak of gratitude, of being present, of finding peace in what is. And I call it the slow death of your will, dressed in spiritual language, to make your surrender sound noble. Listen to me carefully. There is a difference between the serenity of the mountain peak and the stillness of the corpse. One comes after ascent. The other comes from never beginning the climb. You have built a philosophy from your exhaustion and called it enlightenment. You preach enough because you lack the strength for more. You speak of acceptance because you are terrified of the word ambition, that dangerous syllable that would demand you risk everything you've made. Comfortable. And so you have done something remarkable, something I must name. You have sanctified your cowardice. You have made a religion of your retreat. Tell me, when did comfort become your highest value? When did the absence of suffering become more sacred than the presence of greatness? I who have wandered in solitude, I who have stared into the abyss until it stared back and we became intimate. I know this truth. The comfort you cling to is not freedom. It is your chains. And you have polished them so thoroughly that they now shine like jewelry. Look at the bird in the cage. At first, it threw itself against the bars, desperate for sky. But time passes. The cage becomes familiar. Seeds appear each morning without effort. The perch is worn smooth. The mirror provides endless company, that poor creature's own reflection mistaken for a companion. And one day, someone opens the door. The bird does not fly. It preaches the virtues of the cage. This, it says, is wisdom. This is presence. Why chase the exhausting sky when everything I need is here? The wild birds are fools, always searching, never satisfied. But I have found peace. Meanwhile, its wings, magnificent instruments designed for storm and distance atrophy in the name of contentment. You are this bird. You have grown so fond of your limitations that you defend them as philosophy. You cite the Stoics, the Buddhists, the minimalists, anyone whose words can be bent to justify why you should remain small, why you should want less, why the cage is actually a sanctuary and the bars are actually protection. But I ask you, protection from what? From the terror of discovering what you might become if you dared? From the responsibility of your own unused potential? From the guilt of standing at the edge of greatness and choosing instead to return to the familiar smallness you've made sacred? Your minimalism is not enlightenment, it is fear wearing beads and speaking in whispers about letting go. What you've let go of is yourself. Notice the words you use: self-care, boundaries, sustainable, realistic. These are not inherently lies, but in your mouth, they have become elegant excuses. You speak them with the solemnity of someone uttering profound wisdom, when what you're really saying is, I am too afraid to try. You set boundaries not to protect your creative fire, but to ensure you're never tested by anything that might demand you burn brighter. You practice self-care not to restore your strength, but to justify never using it. You speak of sustainability while your soul atrophies from underuse. And realistic. This word is your favorite cage bar. Be realistic. You tell the part of yourself that still dreams, by which you mean remember your limitations. Stay small. Don't embarrass yourself by wanting too much. But I say to you, what you call realistic is simply a map drawn by others who were themselves afraid. You have accepted their borders as natural law. You have agreed to live in their geography of the possible, never questioning whether the map itself is a lie. The realistic person never creates anything worth remembering. The realistic person never becomes the bridge to something higher. The realistic person is not a person at all. They are a consensus, a committee, a collection of inherited fears, voting on whether to remain afraid. And you who could have been a fire, have agreed to be a candle in a windless room, calling your dim flicker wisdom. You have discovered spirituality, meditation, mindfulness, the art of presence. And these, yes, these can be paths to strength, but not in your hands. In your hands, they have become elaborate methods of avoiding life. You meditate not to sharpen your awareness, but to dull your ambition. You practice presence not to fully experience the now, but to avoid thinking about what you've left undone, what you've left unbecome. You speak of letting go when what you're releasing is not attachment, but aspiration itself. I have seen this transformation before: the warrior who loses a battle and calls himself a monk, the artist who fails and calls herself beyond ego, the ambitious who breaks and calls it awakening. There is a spirituality that affirms life, that says yes to existence in all its terrible beauty, that embraces both the heights and the depths. And then there is your spirituality, the spirituality of enough, the spirituality that whispers, don't want, don't strive, don't become, just be. Just be what? Just be this half-lived, carefully managed, risk-averse existence you've constructed? This life designed to never surprise you, never challenge you, never demand you discover what you're capable of? You have mistaken the absence of desire for enlightenment. But the Buddha who sat beneath the Bodhi tree had first been a prince and an ascetic. He knew both extremes before finding his middle way. You preach the middle path while never having walked to either edge. You speak of balance while never having known intensity. Your peace is not hard-won tranquility. It is the silence of the unused instrument. Now I must tell you what you do not want to hear. You are more afraid of success than of failure. Failure is familiar. Failure allows you to remain as you are, to say, I tried, to receive sympathy, to keep your identity as the person with potential that was never quite realized. Failure lets you stay in the cage while believing you're different from those who never even saw the open door. But success demands you become someone new. Success means you can no longer hide behind someday, or if only, or not yet. Success means you must take responsibility for your power, must wield it, must become dangerous to the comfortable order of things, including the comfortable order of your own self-concept. And so, you have done something cunning. You have redefined success to mean anything that doesn't require you to change. You call it success when you maintain your routines. You call it success when you feel content. You call it success when you've avoided risk for another year. But I say this is not success. This is the successful administration of your own decline. Real success, the kind that transforms, requires you to die and be reborn. It requires you to betray who you are for who you might become. It requires you to suffer, to struggle, to stand exposed on the mountain peak where the wind cuts through comfort and pretense alike. And this terrifies you. Because once you've reached that peak, once you've discovered your capacity for greatness, you can never again hide in smallness and call it wisdom. You can never again choose comfort and call it consciousness. The terrible freedom I offer you is this: you are not weak. You are capable. And therefore, you are responsible for your unused capability. Imagine for a moment that you stopped defending your limitations, stopped crafting philosophy from fear, stopped calling your exhaustion enlightenment and your stagnation presence. What would become possible? You would discover that the suffering you've been avoiding is not the enemy, it is the forge. Every great work, every profound transformation, every genuine becoming requires passage through the fire. The caterpillar does not become the butterfly through comfort. It dissolves completely in the darkness of the chrysalis. You would learn that contentment is something earned through conquest, not declared through surrender. The peace of the warrior who has fought is profound. The peace of the person who never entered battle is just. You would find that your capacity is far greater than your comfort zone. That the self you've been protecting is not worth protecting. That the life you've been managing is too small to contain what you might create if you stopped managing and started building. You would become dangerous again, not to others, but to every system of thought, including your own, that would keep you tame. You would recover the wildness that once moved in you before you learned to call it impractical, unrealistic, too much. And here is the greatest transformation. You would stop seeking happiness and start seeking magnitude. Not the magnitude measured by others, but the magnitude of your own becoming, the distance between who you are and who you might be if you dared. Happiness? Happiness is what comes to those who have forgotten they were made for more. Contentment? Contentment is what you tell yourself when you've given up on the conversation with your own greatness. But magnitude, the full expression of your power, your creativity, your will, this includes suffering, includes failure, includes the terrible responsibility of your own unused potential, finally being used. You stand now at a threshold. You have heard what you did not want to hear. You have seen what you've been avoiding. That your comfortable philosophy is simply fear in philosophical clothes. And now you must choose. One path leads back to the cage, back to the language that justifies smallness, back to the spiritual bypassing and the careful management of a life designed never to surprise you, back to contentment that is really just fear of discontentment, back to peace that is really just the absence of struggle. This path is easy, well-worn, socially acceptable. You will find many companions there, all speaking the same language of enough, all reassuring each other that the cage is actually freedom, that never flying is actually wisdom. The other path leads up, toward the mountain peak where the air is thin and the wind is cutting and there is no comfort, no reassurance, only the demand that you become equal to the height. This path requires you to recognize that your comfort was chains, that your contentment was decay, that your spirituality was sophisticated surrender. This path is lonely. It demands everything. It promises no comfort, only the terrible joy of becoming, only the ecstasy of discovering what you're capable of when you stop protecting yourself from your own potential. I cannot choose for you. I can only tell you what I have learned in my wandering, in my solitude, in my confrontation with the abyss. The comfort you cling to is not saving you. It is killing you slowly, so slowly that you've mistaken the dying for living. But you can begin. Today, now, this moment, you can stop defending your limitations and start testing them. Stop sanctifying your comfort and start sacrificing it to the fire of your becoming. Stop preaching the philosophy of enough and start building the philosophy of more, not in the sense of accumulation, but in the sense of becoming more fully what you are capable of being. The cage door is open. It always has been. Will you fly, or will you spend another decade explaining why the cage is actually a sanctuary, why the bars are actually protection, why your atrophied wings are actually evidence of your wisdom? I leave you with this question, and it will haunt you if you let it. When you die, and you will die, will you have become what you were capable of becoming, or will you die as you are now? Comfortable and small and full of the philosophy that justified why you remain so. The choice is yours. It has always been yours. Choose greatness or choose the cage, but stop pretending they are the same thing.